Hey everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to my channel. My name is Maaike. Today we are going to be looking at my Colourpop eyeshadow palette collection. As you could tell from the title perhaps, I just filmed my full eyeshadow palette collection earlier in September, like 1st of September that went live. So if you'd like to know about every single eyeshadow palette I own, then definitely check that out. I'll make sure to leave it in the eye above. But in that video, I of course went over too many palettes to really pay good attention to them. And at that time, I also had 3 of these palettes that I hadn't really used yet. So I thought that I could update you now that I've tried everything and really give you the lowdown on the Colourpop palettes that I have, talking about which ones I like, do some swatches, like just go a little bit more in depth into what I have from Colourpop. And Colourpop is of course a brand that just keeps releasing new things. Like we've all seen it, like now they have that Hocus Pocus collection that's coming out or has already come out. And it's just, you know, it's a brand that can just be very overwhelming. And as you can see, out of everything that Colourpop has released as an eyeshadow palette, this is what I currently have. There is only one other palette that I used to own, which is the Fame palette. And that one I decluttered because I thought it was too boring for what I like. And, you know, Colourpop has really stunning eyeshadow quality. Let's just start there. Like, every single one of these palettes has amazing quality for the price point, I feel. However, I also feel that because Colourpop releases so much, it's just, not only is it too much, it also means that I sort of lose interest in whatever it is they put out because, you know, they will at some point get away with it, like do away with it and like release something new that might be very similar too. So that's also what they tend to do. So I definitely am not someone who collects everything from the brand for sure. I definitely wanted to sort of pick and choose what I really like, and that's what I went with. So as you can see, I've got a lot of the monochromatic palettes. I don't have all of them because I only bought the color stories that I felt were either more unique to my collection or just makeup in general, or that I just know won't work for me. So I don't have the orange and the peach because I have plenty of peaches already, and oranges is just not really what I go for. So that's why you will not be finding those here. So yeah, I definitely, like, I can be a completionist sometimes with some eyeshadow palette families, but here I feel that where Colourpop is now as a brand and what I want to get from it, this is it, because they haven't released anything in recent months that really sparks my interest. So I just wanted to go over everything and show you every palette in close-up, do some swatches, and just really have a good time. That was sort of my idea behind it. And if there are other brands that you would like to see me do a more in-depth collection on them, please let me know, because I'm thinking of maybe making this a series, not this year, but maybe next year, to do like eyeshadow brand specific like collection videos. I think that could be fun. So let's just start with what's at the front, and then I'll move these down a little bit so we can talk about those, because I have 2 12 pan palettes by Colourpop, and one you can no longer get is the Dream Street. This was a collab with Kathleen Lights, and I definitely got this very late in the game. I think I've only had this for about a year and a half. Even though this palette was like out for like 3-4 years before they discontinued it. So I was lucky to still get it on its last run, you could say. And one of the reasons why I held off of buying this is because I just wasn't very interested in too many Colourpop products at the time. And since I live in the Netherlands, in order for me to order from Colourpop, there have to be enough products that I can put in order to make it worth getting it over here and paying for all the shipping and custom fees. That's why I held off of buying this actually for a very long time. But also because I wasn't entirely sure, because it has quite a few warm tones. Like this entire bit here is very warm toned, and I just wasn't sure, because warm tones are things I already have in my collection a lot, and 2, they just aren't my favorite. But the reason why I eventually caved is because it has these teals and this really stunning duochrome. So those are my 3 favorite shades in this palette. However, when I was using this, what I really liked about this palette is how it all compares, because in my brain, these kind of like bluey teals do not necessarily go with something like this almost like corally kind of orange kind of shade. It's like a bit reddish coral pink. But I found that this is actually a really nice shade to deepen something up like this, or to use it as a bit of liner. And this is a really nice pop on the lower lash line. So this is the kind of palette where you can go for a very easy sort of neutrally look with something like this, or this shade down here, which I actually prefer as an inner corner highlight. And then maybe like something like this on the lid, and then this on the lower lash line is just that instant like pop. So I feel that from a versatility perspective, the Dream Street is one of the better palettes that I even have in my collection as a whole, because it just has everything you might need. Like I said, that this is pretty neutral, so this is a nice blend shade for me. This works really well in the crease. And then something like this or this or this on the lid, and you just have a really basic eye for like going to the office, going to school. Then if you want to deepen it up and make it a bit more glam, you can go in with that dark brown shade. I really like this as a topper actually, so if you instantly want to take your look from day to night, like if you have a very basic look going on with these top shades, just top it off at the end of your workday with this shade. You throw on an extra bit of liner and you're good to go, like you've got a look. But then you also get some more interesting shades with, for instance, that corally shade I already mentioned. If you want to make it brighter and you want to make it less neutral and a bit more colorful, then this is a really nice option because it gives you color, but it's not a scary color. Let me swatch this for you because it's a really nice quality. As I mentioned, Colourpop has really nice quality. But this just, it's really smooth, it's very blendable, it's very easy to use. And then with the shade next to it, which is a bit warm as well, like if you put these two together, you can very easily tone this down a little bit to make it a bit more wearable and sort of, you know, make a custom crease shade, you could say. Of course, you could also ignore all of those warm tones and just go in with the teal, and this palette makes a lovely teal smoky eye. So if you pair this one and this one together, so with this in the crease, that matte in your crease, and like really smoked out like all the way to the brow bone, and then just topping it off with this, and also when you put this on top, just magic happens. So let me show you what happens if, for instance, we take that kaleidoscope shade and we put it over that shimmering teal. So if we do this, do you see that it just really amps up that shade? And also if we put it over that matte teal a little bit, like if you just blend it together like that, do you see that that's just, it's such a pretty look? And that's why I think that this is just a really great palette to have. If you still have this in your collection, it's been discontinued, very sadly so. But this is just such a lovely palette, and I really appreciate the color story of this. And this is definitely one of the more unique ones that I think has ever come out, and like on the makeup market in general, and that I just love for that reason. Right, so that was the Dream Street. The other 12 pen I have is fairly new to me. This is the Flutterbye. I ordered this over the summertime. This was very much still on my wish list. It wasn't one that really captured my attention at first because it has this like glittery packaging, and I was like, nah. It also has a pressed glitter, which also makes me go a bit, nah, don't really love it. But so what swayed me in the end was actually, I think it was Jen Phelps who I saw talking about this a bit more. And this is like a very good mauve-y color story. And if you know anything about me, you know I love mauves. And that's sort of what swayed me in the end. I do have to say though that I quite like Colourpop glitters. I have a few of them as singles as well. I don't use them a whole lot. I prefer my Stila Glitter and Glows because it's just a one-stop shop and it's a lot easier to use. So, but even if you take out that shade, like, can I cover it up? No, I can't. But even if you were to take that shade out of the equation, I think you still get a couple of really nice lighter shimmer options that really bring this palette together. This again has lovely Colourpop quality. This shade, however, up here, when I used that, I was like, yes, That's what I want in a palette like this, because I think that when you do a neutral palette like this, it can very easily be very bland and boring. But I'm not sure if you can see this on camera. Oh, there it is. Like, do you see that shine? It is more of like a plum, and it definitely looks like a plum in the pan. But then when you apply it, it has this like pinky, coppery, reddish tone to it, giving it a bit more warmth, but still keeping it fairly neutral. And something like this on the lower lash line is just absolutely stunning. So there are definitely a couple of very unique shades in this palette. You get a couple of very good basic mattes. I know that these two look very samey in the pan, but I really like to have options of like something a bit more brown toned and something a bit more mauve toned for like crease shades. So I feel like two solid crease shades that I can use, a really nice shade to blend things out. You get a brownish shade to deepen things up, but also this really lovely like burgundy plum shade. Again, this is not a boring neutral palette because you get enough like depth and dimension to make it a bit more interesting. I think my hand is still a bit meh from swatching those other shades just now, but you know, you can easily build this up. It's looking super patchy. I don't know why it shows up like that, but we all know finger swatches aren't everything. What matters to me is how this applies with a brush. And this as a deepening up shade is really lovely. This more like cool tone brown, very, very dark. It's got a bit of sparkle in it, which is not my favorite, but I really like this as liner. So this to me as like an eyeliner is really, really lovely. And then the last shade I really want to talk about, or maybe two shades actually I still want to talk about, is this shade here, because we all know I love taupes. And this, it's such a stunning, like, it's a taupe, but it has like a rosy sheen to it. It's really, really stunning. So this all over the lid, really pretty. And then that pinky shade over here, that shimmering pink, is just exactly that shade that you need to brighten something up. If you want to make a very, like, this is like a very intense inner corner highlight, but it can also be used to top off something like this or like this, just for that little accent in the center of the lid. So again, from a neutral palettes perspective, I think this is a really good one because it does give you the versatility of going more daytime, more nighttime, a bit more glam, especially if you put that glitter on. The Flutterbye is definitely one that now that I've tried it, I totally get the hype. All right, so let's talk about these 9 pan palettes that they have. So I have 10 that I bought in one go, actually. I bought them in the Black Friday sales last year, and then I tried them over the springtime. And then I bought the Going Coconuts, which is more neutral, and the Making Mauves, which is in their cardboard packaging, which I have to say I do prefer. I like that these have mirrors. Let me show you. Like, this is really nice because it has that mirror, but in a way I do feel that this is just not as sturdy. Like, this I feel is a bit more travel friendly and a little bit more foolproof. Like, if you drop it, it doesn't break immediately into 1,000 pieces. But I already did a video with 10, so save for these two. I did a video with all 10 of these where I do looks with these, swatches, I rank them like my top 5 and my bottom 5, and it was an hour-long video, so I can link that in the eye above. Wait, where is it? Here. So I can link that in the eye above if you truly want to see how these shadows go on. In each look that I do in that video, I attempt to use all 9 shades that are in these palettes, just to, you know, give them a whirl, try them out. And I was pretty disappointed actually with one of the palettes that I was super excited for when I tried all of these, and that was the Blue Moon. I really wanted to try this because it's a blue palette and I love blue shadow, and this I felt just wasn't the Colourpop kind of formula that I know and love. So that's why I was a bit disappointed with this one. It's got a couple of shades that I do like, but especially this matte and also this Double D shade. Like, this just doesn't have great pigmentation, not as a swatch, it's very difficult to build it up. It's just not a great shade really. But then it also has that what's it called again, Billie Jean shade, and that is then really stunning, you know. So it's a bit of a hit and miss kind of palette for me, and that's why I definitely rank this in my bottom 5 when I talked about these palettes. It just wasn't one that really stood out to me. And I have other blue palettes in my collection that I therefore like better than this. However, it's got a couple of shades, like these shimmers I like, and I think that Fine China, like this was, again, not the best, but for a bright blue, because, ooh, I'm making such a mess here. But for a bright blue, which are really hard to do, this was good. So it's just a palette that has a few ups, a few downs. Is it nice? Is it okay quality? Can you work with this? For sure, but it just wasn't my favorite of these. Another palette that I thought was not the best from this like 9-pan family was the Strawberry Shake. Unfortunately, I had my hopes up so high for this because I was hoping that this would be like a better pink palette. The Oola is a nice pink palette, but it's quite bright. And I was just hoping that this could be just a little bit more neutral. But I, again, found, like with the Blue Moon, like this shade I quite like, but it feels quite dry. But, you know, when you, like, this is something you can work with, but it does have that shimmer running through it, which is not my favorite, I have to say. But this is not a bad palette by any means. I just felt that how the colors came together, there just wasn't a lot that I could do with this. It's just a good companion palette, I feel. Like, if you put this together with the Main Squeeze or the Oola, I think it can work really well, like this shade with some of the shades from the Oola, or like these two reddish shades with this, or this orangey tone. Like, this is such a stunning shimmer. This like peachy shade, I'm not sure what it has to do with strawberries, but like that all over the lid, and then with some interesting shades in the crease is really, really pretty. But I felt that especially like these, like they were just a bit lackluster. So again, there are 2 or 3 shades in this palette that I like, but it's not a standout product for me. It's not one that I will really reach for to make one look with again. It was just not the best. So I'm just going to keep going from left to right, I guess. So the Just My Luck was one that I did really like. However, I do think that I like the Mint to Be a little better than the Just My Luck in terms of like the green tone palettes from these 9-pans. And that just has to do with the color story that's inside it. The greens in the Just My Luck, if I can get it to open, yes, they are just a little, I'm not going to say that they're really warm toned. It's not a warm tone green palette. Greens are difficult to get more warm toned. But you do get this olive in here and also that chartreuse, while really, really stunning. Like, this is one of the standout shades in this palette for sure. It's called Mary Jane. It's a really nice like limey, chartreusey kind of green shade. And this has really lovely quality too. I do really like it. It's just that in terms of greens, I feel that something like the Huda Beauty, what's it called again? The Emerald Obsessions was one I already owned before it. And I feel that that has a very similar color story to this. So for me, this just wasn't very unique in terms of what greens I already had in my personal makeup collection. But I do really like this, you get this like more like bottle green shade, and then a forest green, and this more like brownish green. So I think that's very clever. I love these like goldeny tones with like a greenish shift to it, more like an olive. Love that too. I really like So as well. Like this was so stunning. I think I put this on my lower lash line at the time, so that's also a really pretty shade. So this is a really lovely palette. Like, it's got really good quality overall, I feel. It's just that color story wise, for me, this wasn't the green palette of my dreams. So let's keep the green train going and talk about the Mint to Be for a minute. So the Mint to Be, as I mentioned, is my favorite of the 2 green palettes on offer. And some people may look at this and go like, ooh, that looks very light, perhaps a bit boring too, but I have fair skin. I've got a cool to neutral undertone. So on me, these greens offer something that I feel not many green palettes on the market currently offer. I really like this like grayish tone that is in here. Like, is it a gray? Is it a green? I'm not entirely sure. And on some people, this just won't, you know, look really great because it can look very ashy on. And because it's so pale, it may not even like show up at all. But for instance, something like this, like really nice, like brightish mint green shimmer, like, don't you just want to put that all over your eye? I don't know about you, but I certainly do right now. Like, I want to take off my makeup and like put that on for sure. This has some lovely mattes that are easy to blend. I was very wowed with this because I just really liked how it's light and very fair girl friendly, and I loved it for that reason. However, I do think that if you have a very warm skin tone, or maybe if your skin tone is just a lot darker than mine, then this is probably going to muddy together and look very ashy very quickly. I also really want to swatch this one. I'm like staring at this shade. I'm like, oh, I want to swatch that one too for you, because that's also a really lovely shimmer. So where for some people this may not be right because it's very samey, on me this just works really well, and I can't wait to pull this out actually in the summertime, or in the summertime, in the winter time, because when I'm super duper pale, these very light shades just work really well on me. All right, and for a minute, I actually want to move on to the Uh Huh Honey before we tackle this here, because I feel that these two kind of go together. I don't know, in my brain, that's how it works. But the yellow tone palette, which again, I feel is very unique to Colourpop's line. I think that more people started doing yellow tone palettes because of this palette, actually. Or maybe Colourpop was just really quick to pick up on the trend when that happened. Mine did come out a little bit broken. That's why a couple of them look a little bit weirdly pressed, because I had to repress them. And it's been doing okay ever since. It's still a bit flaky and messy, but not as flaky and messy as it used to be, because it used to go all over the place. So happy that I took the time to really make sure to repress these and make them work better. This has some lovely shimmers. The glitter in the middle, this is just not my kind of glitter. Like the glitter shade in the Flutterbye, I feel can really amp up a look, but this, I feel, it's just not, like, I would never go for a glitter like this yellow, and it's just not my thing. I've said of this palette before that this palette as a whole just doesn't go dark enough for me. I really would have wanted like these two shades and also these two shades. I feel are fairly interchangeable. So for me, it would have been nice if one of these two, perhaps for me, this one, to be quite honest, would have been replaced with a brown that would be darker than this, so that you have something that this gold can play off a bit better. I feel that this is quite dark, related, like in relation to everything else that's going on in this palette. So for me, in terms of a yellow tone palette, it isn't perfect, but it is only one of the very few yellow tone palettes I have, so I'll take it. And it is really stunning quality, and I did really like the look that came out of this, but it's perhaps not as versatile as I would want it to be. I know I just said about the Mint to Be that I love that more because it is so light, but for this, I would have wanted just a little bit more oomph in the palette. So I do really like this, is it called Queen Bee? Yeah, Queen Bee is really, really stunning. Like this, like I'm not a huge fan of yellow tone golds, but this is a really good yellow tone gold, I have to say. And also that Sunburst that I really like too. Like I love the three shimmers that you get in here the most. That's definitely also really nice. Like I love how this is yellow, but then it has that sort of like white gold kind of flash to it. So pretty. And I do really have to say that I like Buzzkill a lot too. So this shade is really, really stunning as like a crease shade, or like, yeah, as I said, I don't find it deep enough to really deepen up the look, but it is the deepest shade you get in here, so it does work as a whole. It's just not super versatile. Okay, moving up then to the Main Squeeze palette, and I threw away all the boxes apart from this one because I just really like how they did this outer box. It's definitely a standout box in terms of Colourpop packaging, because you get that red from the watermelon and then you also get the Rint. I love it. So that's why I kept the box, because I just love it too much. At some point it will go. It usually takes up too much space, but this is the palette itself. I just wish they had put that Rind like all over the packaging. Oh well. And this is the red tone palette. Now, if you know anything about me, then you know that like warm tones are not necessarily my favorite thing to wear. So you can imagine my surprise when I put this on and the look came out looking really, really well. And that has to do with the fact that this is more red toned, and I've got brown eyes that in most lighting and with most makeup just look brown. But when I wear certain colors, or if the light hits my eyes just right, you could say, they can show a hint of green. And I felt that this palette really brought out the green in my eyes. So especially if you are someone with more like hazel / greeny eyes, definitely look into this palette because it is absolutely stunning. This is one of my favorite shades here. It keeps popping out. It's called Home Slice. And this is just such a really nice, like, you think, like, how can I make something like this work? But this is a satin kind of shade, I would say. Like, it's not a flat matte. And I feel that that has just a little bit of life behind it. It's a red, but it's got a hint of pink to it almost. It's definitely that watermelon kind of shade. And that's what I love about that. And then how that plays together with something like maraschino. I think it's like a type of cherry, if I'm not mistaken. So if you put that next to it, like these two together, like, oh, so stunning. And then in this palette, what is missing in the Uh Huh Honey, you do get a nice deep shade that's like pretty dry, but I have a similar experience with the Lime Crime like Venus XL that also has a very dry, like very dark berry shade. And I feel a little similarly about this, that it's dry, but once you get it on, like these three shades together, it's just a really stunning, like reddish smoky eye. And for me, the time of the year where I would wear something like this is right now. These kind of warm tones, leaning a little bit more berry toned, reddish toned, I love in the fall time because it just reminds me of turning leaves. So this is definitely a palette I want to bust out in the next couple of weeks to come. And then the Oola, because I mentioned that I sort of feel this goes together with the main squeeze. It's not true, of course, because this is more of a pink, but pinks and reds together, like if you put something like this together with reds, it's also one of my favorite combinations in clothing, actually. Whether it's like a dusty rose with a burgundy or like a brighter pink with a bright fire edge and red, I just think it's a combo made in heaven. So for me, the Oola La is definitely more unique. However, will I be going out wearing a all pink look this bright anytime soon? I don't think so, and I feel I have other bright pinks in my collection, like in rainbow palettes that I own or other colorful palettes that I just like a little bit better. But again, here I appreciate you get some lighter tones, brighter tones. This goldy shade I could kind of do without, and then you do get some depth in here as well. So in terms of versatility, I do really like this. It has Poodle, which I already owned as a single, which is why I kind of held off of buying this for a while. But and Sandbar, by the way, as well. Like these you can buy as singles. My favorite shade in here is that middle shade because it has just a little bit of like a blue flash to it. And that's just a little bit more unique in terms of like pinks that I already own in my collection. For me, was this a solid favorite? No. But again, more of a companion palette for me. Oh, that shade is like really swatching very terribly. I may have to scrape that one off to see if I can bring it back to life. But yeah, this is just a palette that I feel that, you know, Sandbar or Opulent and then putting it together with like something like the Strawberry Shake or the main squeeze, I think can work. For instance, if you want to tone down the main squeeze a little bit, then these two can be quite nice. And for instance, that Tickled shade can also work really nice as like a topper over other things. But would I really say that this is a great like standalone palette? Not per se. And I felt very similarly about the It's My Pleasure. This is the purple palette, and I think the line got started with this one, if I'm not mistaken. The Oola La and the It's My Pleasure were the first two that were released. Oh, no! Oh, my bare minimum shade has cracked. I did keep the little bits that fell out, so I may want to repress that because that shade is actually my favorite in this entire palette. I was saying that this was one of the first palettes to come out in this monochromatic line. Is it as purple as I feel it could have been? Definitely not. Like, you really only get one true purple in this, and that's Chiclet. And this is more of a mauve, this is more of a rose, this is more of like a dusty rose, this is more like a lilac, this could be pink, but or it could be purple. This is more like a burgundy, and also that bare minimum shade is like a shimmering burgundy, plum kind of shade. So it's not as purple as I'd like it to be. Like, isn't that just a stunning shade? Like, I really like this. It's just that once you put everything on the eye, it's just not as purple as I'd want it to be. See, that's purple to me. More of like a blue tone, but I feel that everything that's going on in here is quite warm toned for a purple palette. So that's why this was not my favorite palette for sure. It's got a couple of very lovely shades, but again, out of all of the monochromatic palettes, this was definitely one of my bottom 5. We have the Lilac You A Lot. This from the purple selection I like a million times better than the It's My Pleasure. And this is just far more, this was far more up my street because it is a bit more cool toned, and I also feel it looked more purple on me. It again has some more like pink tones to it, but I feel that these two shades kind of bring the palette together and make it a bit more purple. They are very light though, so again, this iffy shade I really like. On my fair skin it works quite well, but I can also see that again, this is not perhaps the purple palette for like a huge number of people, because it's just, it is more cool toned, and that has to be your cup of tea. And then this shade in the middle, oh, that shimmer, what's it called, Fluff, I think. Like these two shades just together, you got a really lovely purple look. So for me, I prefer my purple tones to be on the cooler end of the spectrum, and for me this works really well. I think that this is a perfect palette for spring. And we're going to end it on a super high note because I love these 3 palettes. These are some of my favorites from this entire Colourpop collection. The Smoke Show was a huge, huge surprise to me because I didn't think I'd like a gray toned color story this much. But I find that what's very clever about this is that even though you only get 9 pans and you get still a really good range of grays. It just is. Grays and blacks. I think that if you are interested in the Mr. Star Cremated palette, but you don't want to support the brand and you don't want to spend your money on that, that this is the alternative to go for. If you want something that's more affordable, that is a little less controversial, then this is definitely a great alternative, because this gray over here and this one, they have a bit more of like a greenish bluish kind of undertone. So look, do you see that? It looks almost green if you just look at it by themselves like this. They don't look as like boring gray. Like the only boring gray in this entire palette is that light gray shade. But then these two, this one and this one, these are grays that have more of a purpley undertone to it. So I really appreciated that about this palette. And then you get that lovely, very vibrant silver in the middle. You get a white to blend this out, things out. You get 2 different blacks. This black with the shimmer, let me see, other finger for a minute here. So this black with the shimmer, I found, to my surprise, that the shimmer actually kind of shows up if you really pack it on. So this is also a great smoky eye palette for super glam looks, you know, that silver all over the lid to really amp it up. This is just such a lovely, lovely palette. You do make a mess though. Look at my fingers. Yeah, this palette had quite a bit of like fallout, so you do have to be very careful with it and make sure you put on some extra powder under your eyes, or do your foundation last with this one, because it can definitely, because of the dark shades, it can definitely mess up your makeup if you're wearing anything else. Right, and then we have the Making Mauves, and you may be wondering, Micah, if you already own the Flutterbye, why did you also get Making Mauves? But the minute they released this, but it was right at the start of lockdown, so I couldn't get my hands on it because Colourpop was closed for business for a while. I just knew I wanted to try this. So from the like Flutterbye, like how this compares to it, I feel that even though it's also mauves, I still feel this is different. I know, like, I'm terrible. Like, I love mauve eyeshadow, right? We all know that. But I feel that this perhaps has a little bit more warmth to it. And in this, you just get a really good range of mattes because you have these like lighter shades at the top. All 3 of these can work on me as like a crease shade. And then you have this to like deepen it up. This makes it go deep enough to make it a bit more glam, to make it a little bit more date night, nighttime appropriate for sure. I just had a bit of issues with this shade kind of like smudging all over the pan, which is why this palette looks absolutely grubby. But these 3 shimmers in the middle are also lovely. This one, and I think these are more like Super Shock shadows actually. They feel very creamy. So do you like, I'm a sucker for a rose gold, and this is the rose gold shade of my dreams. Like, so good, so good. And then that like pinky shade next to it is really nice too, but this feels a bit drier. This is more like Colourpop's like standard shimmer formula, it feels. And then you also have that sort of champagne-y shade right next to it. And this is just such a good shimmer combo. Like, you can very easily use this to top that off, or, you know, do a bit of like a halo eye with this. Like, it's got all the things you need to do very many looks and still keep it neutral. I feel the Flutterbye is perhaps a little more neutral though than this. I definitely feel that this has more warmth because of this shade, and this is also like more of a warm toned mauve. They're really nice mattes, but for me, it just has a really good shimmer option. I wish this shade was in the Flutterbye instead of the glitter. And then right here we have the Going Coconuts, last but not least. And this is very much promoted by a lot of people as a more cool toned neutral palette. It's not cool toned. Everybody on the planet who has a warm undertone they just all tell people that it's a cool tone palette the minute it has like one cool tone shade. I feel that you really only get one cool tone shade in here, maybe two, these two at the bottom. But this is warm, this is warm, this is warm, and this has a golden flash to it, which you can't really see in the pan. So I feel that like 95% of this palette is warm tones, and you do get a more cool toned leaning palette overall. Like with some of the shades you can create a cool toned look for sure. I just feel that what this really is a neutral palette. So a neutral palette, because even though this looks quite warm, it's not the warmest shade on the planet. That is a really stunning matte. Of course, again, I really like that shade in the middle that feels like a Super Shock. Really, really nice. And I do have to say that one of the other standout shades in this palette is the Cocoa, which is that cooler tone brown. So let me swatch that. And this is, again, the regular shimmer formula. But I hope you can see that in this lighting. That, yes, it has a cool brown base, but it has a golden flash to it, making it not that cool toned. So for me, this is just a really good neutral palette. If you are a beginner with makeup, if you don't know where to start with any of these palettes and you really like neutrals, again, for school, for the office, if you go to places, like if you just want to look good in your Zoom call, this is really, really excellent quality. I think this is also a really good palette for more mature people using makeup, because it does have some shimmer that can really stand out on your lids, but you also get a good range of mattes here to really build up a look. And then, you know, you just have everything that you need. I think this is a good one for a really big range of people. Do I feel it is for everyone? Not necessarily, because again, I feel it is more fair skin friendly than it is anything else. Like, I definitely think that people with really deep skin tones may find this a little boring, a little bland. It won't look as great perhaps because it can pull a bit ashy, I think. These are all of my Colourpop palettes in my collection, and just giving you a little bit more in-depth information on them and how I feel that I've tried everything. Let me know in a comment down below if there's a brand you would like to showcase, you would like me to showcase in more detail as well. I definitely have like other like palette families that I can do a video on. I already did one on Zoeva, so if you would like to see that, then I just did that in August. So again, link it in the eye above. So yeah, so far nothing has come out from Colourpop that I really want to put my money towards again anytime soon, but maybe they come out with something again and then I can update you again on that. So I hope you really enjoyed watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make 3 new videos a week, so I'll be back with a new video for you soon. See you then. Bye bye.